engineer. Today is all about quarantine nails. Like, how on earth do you get through lockdown when you're not a nail tech? You want to be able to get what's on your nails off, or blend it out, or rebalance it, whatever your situation. I am here to help. But one of my ladies in particular, Laura, who was in my ultraviolet opals video, I'll put a link in the description box below. She loves having her nails done, but she's never ever done her nails. She's like a total nail virgin. So I put her together, as might some of your nail techs. Some of your nail techs might be able to do this. Put you together a little care package that, depending on your requirements, will just kind of tide you over this period, however long it might be, who knows. Failing that, I'm going to give you some hints and tips on what products you can get a hold of if you're not a professional yourself, and how you can use them in 3 main ways. I'm not going to show you soak off because I already have a video for that, and again, I'll put a link in the description below. How to soak off even builder gel safely and damage free. So that one's a really handy one if you just want to give your nails a little rest over this period. The second method is to blend and grow it out, and I'll talk about that as I redo my hands. Well, hander, because this hand is already done. And the third method, which is the method that I am going to actually do today and talk about the other stuff while I'm doing it, is to rebalance or infill. Now, just a little note on what things you will need. Obviously, if you're using any kind of gel product, you will need a lamp. I can heartily recommend the Sun UV. This is my Sun 3 lamp, which is a little bit battered and bruised, but it's great because it's got a double power and a low heat mode. So the low heat mode is great for stuff that has a heat spike, which is pretty much every builder that you'll ever use. You will need files, and there are 2 specific types of files that I really recommend. This curved or boomerang file, which is, these are both 100, 180 grit, 100 on the rough side, 180 on the smoother side, and a diamond file. And I'll show you as we go through why I use 2 different kinds of files. I basically use them for different areas of the nails and for different reasons. And a gel bottle sponge buffer. Other sponge buffers are available, but my favourites are still the gel bottle ones. Just the quality of them, they last longer, they seem to have just a little more oomph. So those 3 are essential files to do your rebalance or kind of blending out. You will need to take care of your cuticles, and for that, obviously I use like an E-file now, but you can do the old-fashioned way with cuticle removal cream. If you've got really wild cuticles like mine that need to be dissolved away, and of course you use a cuticle pusher. This actually isn't the best type of cuticle pusher to use if you're using cuticle cream. A blade type is actually the best, but I gave mine away to Laura because she was in desperate need of it. I don't need it. I've got an E-file, so. Obviously, you don't have to use that. You can just scrape away. If you've got fairly tame cuticles, you might be able to just scrape and then nip off. And again, you can use a pair of clippers to snip away, but they're generally not sharp enough. You can also get these kind of cuticle cutters, which you basically just run along the exposed cuticle once it's lifted off the nail. You just kind of run it along and it just slices it up. These can be found in like old school little handbag manicure packs, like the little compacts that you get. So these are quite handy. are infilling, you'll need some kind of product. I will go into that as we go along. For that product, you may or may not need some base coat. If you want to put colour on, obviously you're going to need a colour gel polish and some top coat. And of course, cuticle oil. Cuticle oil is really, really important to keep up the quality of your skin and the condition, especially with all this hand washing. And you will need a towel as well to catch any like dust and whatnot. And before you go, oh well, it's easy for you to say this and to do this because you're a nail tech, so you've done this a billion times. Yeah, that's why I'm going to show you me doing my wrong hand. Okay, so I'm going to use my wrong hand, my non-dominant hand, to fill this hand, which is always the worst case scenario. So I am gloved up on this hand because this hand is all done and I don't want to scratch it up and damage it. So on here I've got about 4 weeks regrowth, and I've got a fair bit of lifting because this is my dominant hand. Anyway, so yeah, here's my terrible looking nails. And first things first, let's take care of this nasty looking cuticle. So I'm just gonna give it a little scrape the old fashioned way. And obviously I can kind of tidy this up a bit more later. And then I'm just gonna nip off that nice dry nasty bit of skin like so. And then the important thing to do, and often I do this as a kind of last step, I just give the natural regrowth a bit of a buff. There you go, that's it, it's that simple. Just push, snip if you need to, and then buff off any excess skin that's on the nail. And trust me, when you're all done and oiled up, it'll look a lot better than it does now. And bear in mind that I have eczema. So on to the filing. When you're all growed out and it's looking all nasty, here I'm using the rough side of my diamond file, and notice how this hand, my non-dominant hand, is actually pretty stationary. I am moving my dominant hand because I have a bit more control over what my dominant hand does, and that's because I'm using this extra rough part, and I really don't want to be catching my natural nail with it because I'm trying to debulk the sidewalls. And I always start here as well. I always start around the cuticle, and for the beginners I recommend to use the curved or boomerang file around your cuticles because that just gives you even more control over not hitting your natural nail, because you don't want to end up with a ring of fire by biting into your natural nail. For any beginners out there, I definitely recommend to try and keep as much of the movement as possible to your dominant hand, and that will maximize your control. Also, lean on something so that it keeps you steady, because as it is with your non-dominant hand, you are prone to be less steady on it. So, you know, just lean on something that'll stabilize you and help to counteract the strangeness of like doing stuff with your wrong hand. So basically what I do first, and whether you do the blend and grow out or the rebalance and infill method, you will be doing this. You will just be doing more of this if you're doing the blend and grow out method. But all I'm doing is I'm starting here at the cuticle to just blend what is there and just following the line of the product and taking care not to catch my natural nail. And if I show you like a downward angle just there, you can see, this is really hard to demonstrate and get the angle right. You can see that I'm really not, it's mostly towards here that is touching my nail. Oh, I should mention, if you're using fresh files, you need to take the sharp bits off as well before you use them. And this is really easy. You just seesaw along the edges using one file on another, and then flip her over and do her on the other side. After I've managed to do this bit here, what you might want to do is just give a little spray of isopropyl alcohol, and what that does is that shines up the surface, and then you can see if you've managed to get your lifting area off, and I haven't. So for the sides, I actually really prefer to use my diamond file. I just find that it gets into the sidewalls a bit better, and you'll notice that I'm kind of tickling it off with a side to side motion here, or an up and down motion, because I just basically want to get rid of that lifted product. And your best bet when you've got a lift is to just stay slightly behind where the lift is, and then tickle off. See that little bit that's coming off? Perhaps if I get my tweezers here, you'll be able to see it a bit better. So if we can just see in that side, there's a little bit, see that little strip of product that's coming off? That's the lifted product that I managed to get behind. And you can see there's still a bit more lifted product. In fact, it's really, there's such a lift underneath there that it's really soft, that product. So basically, you just keep going, getting behind the lift, and then tickling off the exposed lifted product until you've got no more lifting left. And if you keep repeating that process of like giving your finger a dust off, don't do this if you're not wearing gloves, because you'll put finger oil, skin oil on your nail, and you don't want to do that. But yeah, you just keep doing that. Go behind the lift and then tickle it off until you're all done. So you'll notice that I'm doing that kind of that way up. Obviously, if I'm working on my other fingers, I've got it kind of, I'm holding it this way towards me. So, and when I first start filing off, especially if you've got colour, I use the rough side after I've done the cuticle area very carefully. I always do those first, do them careful, get them right before I go in with the rough stuff and properly hulk out. So once I've got my cuticle area done and the lifted product is away and off of the nail, I will then generally move on to just thinning out those side walls, and again pick up any lifted product while you go in, and then I'll tend to start to reshape the nail. Now, some people really struggle to reshape the nail, especially if they've got lifts at the free edge as well. You might have lost a chunk off, you know, if you've lost a chunk of your builder or your gel or whatever, you might kind of struggle a bit to use a fairly heavy duty file, these are, without feeling like it's going to like bend your nail back. So don't worry, you can actually get to the end of the infill process and then file your free edges into their final shape when you've got your rebalance done. It just means that you'll waste a bit of product, you know. But yeah, if you're struggling to see what the final shape is going to be, while they're still looking kind of a bit nasty and raggedy elsewhere, then you can just do it that way, do it at the end. So you'll see there that I've used kind of like at a 30-degree angle. I've used the edge of the file here, and I'm doing a ballerina shape. Some people call it a coffin, I call it a ballerina. Basically, you would just do less of the side filing if you wanted a tapered square. And you basically bring those in until they look kind of fairly equal to you. And bear in mind that you might well need to refine these sides once you get your tip length down. I must say, do not, I repeat, do not use scissors or clippers if you have got like gel product on your nails, because they basically cut by compressing your nail down, and that can cause really bad damage and can also cause a lot of lifting of any product that's left there. So especially if you're going to like infill again, you don't want to do that. Always file. I know it can be tedious, but with the rough edge, you'll see this come down so quickly. And again, if this motion makes you go as it does with a lot of people, that's all right. You can take the length down going side to side like this. Obviously don't do this if this is like your natural nail. I've got builder on, but yeah, just be a bit more gentle and only go from outside to the middle, outside to the middle, outside to the middle, like that if it's your natural nail. See how much length has come off there? And I just I'll stop short at that point because, oh look, I've got a fat end. This needs to come down and be like the final thickness before I file my edge in, because if I file my edge in and get the shape perfect, chances are I could damage that when I'm doing this motion. And you can see again, I'm on an angle here and it looks like I'm filing my finger. I'm really not. That's just dust coming off. And similarly, you will not do this if you are not wearing like a builder gel or acrylic. And a note on acrylic, all you girls out there that have got acrylic nails and are thinking, shit, what am I gonna do? Acrylic's difficult to use. The great news is, if you could get a hold of some builder in a bottle, you can infill acrylic. It started off available to everybody. It went pro, I don't know, 2 years ago, something like that. So only professionals can get it, but everything's for sale on eBay. And sorry, Daisy, you know, I know that you want to keep it for professionals only, but this is a national emergency. So anyway, I digress. Here we go. I've thinned out that edge. And you can see actually it's not quite the finished deal. So again, I'm going to use that. And I find to do the edges, it's a lot easier for me to put my thumb that way. But let me just see if I can show you what I'm trying to do. I'm kind of at this angle. So like a diagonal angle. And I'm beveling, this is what this is called. It's called beveling the free edge. I'm beveling down to this edge here. And then I do the same on the other side. So when I'm doing this, that's the kind of, and again, we've got like a kind of 30-degree angle to the nail, a bit like when you're sharpening knives. I am actually going to be infilling my glow-in-the-dark pink opals with my special mixture that I made, but I will show you how to infill with this. This already contains primers, which again is why I'm really recommending to get a hold of some if you can, because you don't need to put a base coat on with this unless you have extremely weak or very oily, troublesome nails prone to lifting. That's just me putting my rubber base in my boob to warm up, because I'll be using GelPot, which does require base, so I need to use my gel bottle ink rubber base. But yeah, if you can't get hold of that kind of thing, as far as I'm aware, anyone can order Madam Glam. Another product that you could use from Madam Glam is polygel, and basically this is a lot like applying acrylic, but it doesn't cure while you're patting it around the nail, which is great. So this colour here is Dahlia, which is actually very similar on the nail to Builder in a Bottle number 20, which is my favourite that I'm wearing. And basically you just wet a gel brush, you just dip that in isopropyl alcohol and use it to kind of pat down a bead of the product over the nail. So, you know, there's a lot of options out there for product that you can get your hands on. Just, you know, pick whatever works for you. There we go. That's kind of my finished nail. Actually, it's still a little bit long and still a little bit humpy there. So let's just see if I can get that down a bit. And this is where this comes in fantastically handy, because you can then, as a final step, use this sponge buffer just to glide all over the nail and just kind of blend out any lumps and bumps. It will naturally find the high points, and it's also really, really good for just that tiny, tiny little remaining edge of the lifted product, to just get those last little dusty bits off and blend it out with the nail. So at this stage here, as you can see, I've got my shape that I want to have. My side walls are fairly equal. The reason that I do this direction personally is because it gives me a nice crispy edge. Pick the nail shape that you like, but I definitely recommend to go with square or ballerina. They're a lot easier to just get equal. So this is the stage that you would stop at if you are doing the blend and grow out method. And for the blend and grow out method, basically at this point, I would then clean down the nail, and if you've got gel polish and a lamp, then pop your gel polish on with your base coat, obviously. And what you're doing is you're just kind of growing out this builder, but kind of blending, masking that line as the nail grows out. And obviously the most important thing with that is that if you have an apex on your nail, that you've taken that apex down, because obviously it moves down the nail. You don't want to end up with like an apex in the middle of the free edge, really, do you? And also it won't be doing you any good to have an apex, a grown out apex still on the nail. And just keep on filing the nail down and buffing it up as the nail grows out, and that should stop you having too much of an imbalance that would then cause like a horribly catastrophic break down into your nail bed. If you notice any streakiness on the brush, there's a little bit of streakiness there, that's okay. It's just the primer content separating away from the pigmented builder content. And it especially happens in the warmer weather. It's nice and warm today. It seems to kind of like thin out and separate out a bit. That's okay, just give it a good old shake. So I'm just using my Q-tip. This is a bit of acetone, pure acetone, that I've just put into the lid of my spray pot. Why do I do that? So that I can immediately put the lid back on my acetone if it's a lidded container. And all I'm doing is, after every couple of nails, just soaking that Q-tip again and just giving a good old wipe around the regrowth area. and this is to dehydrate the nail to make the perfect surface to which this can adhere. So for this amount of regrowth, I'm going to use about that much on my brush. I'm going to start off with the thin side, so the side of the brush that's got the least product on, because what you want to do is pop a blob around about there on the nail, just kind of push it back ever so slightly, but not all the way to the cuticle. And then while kind of pressing down so you've got minimal product on your brush and you're also making the brush fan out, I just swipe down the nail, come off, then go to the other side, taking care not to drop a whole bunch of additional product on. I might just scrape off that excess off that side, put the brush back down slightly on the blob, and again fan out and down the nail. And what I'm doing there is I'm just getting a thin, what we call a slip layer, a thin layer on the edge of the nail, keeping the maximum product towards the regrowth area, which is what you need to rebalance. And then once I've got that slip layer on, that's going to enable me to just walk the product around the nail, get it where I want it to be quite easily. So, see, now I've been talking long enough that the rest of the product has dripped onto the other side of the brush. Obviously, when you do this at home, you'll then be flipping over your brush to get to the side that's got product on. So again, I'm just going to kind of pogo the brush up and down a little bit until a kind of blob deposits on the nail. And now we're going to use a smiling motion. So we're going to push back towards the cuticle, but again, I'm not going right there, and then just kind of smile a little bit side to side while also pushing back. So I'm just gently pushing the product back towards the cuticle, and then that's it. That's about as much product as I want on the nail right now, and I don't want to flood my cuticles. And if you think, oh no, it's gonna run, don't panic. Just turn upside down, let that product pull forward, like pull to the center again, and see? Panic over, and then you're just going to push and just gently wiggle that product back to the cuticle. Now, when you're doing it yourself, you don't necessarily need to worry about getting it as close to the cuticle as your nail tech would, because you've got this product in your home. You can touch it up in another 2 weeks if you want, you know, that's not a problem. It's better to stop a little bit short and don't get any of that product on your skin, because that's like the express train to Allergy Town. I need to use rubber base coat. Why is it in a bag, you say? Because this has been in my bra. It's been in my boobs, keeping warm. And Frank still likes to munch on my boobs. So I am not about to get nail product on said boobs. Now, by rights, I only really need to apply the rubber base coat just to the regrowth. So, but I do tend to err on the side of caution anyway, and just kind of swipe it up the nail. And you will notice that I am reinforcing this finger here. I'm resting it against my thumb to keep that steady. And I'm moving my dominant hand around. My non-dominant hand is resting against my wrist just to keep everything steady, and I've got my elbows on the edge of the table here just to keep everything nice and steady and together. Now you can see there that I'm starting to get like a little humpy line there. That's okay, you can just pick up and drag, and that will kind of pull out the hump. If you just kind of pick up near to where the hump is and drag your brush backwards, you'll just pull that product back. And similarly at this side, just pick up and pull it back, and it'll drag it back to the center. And you'll see, because it's such a warm day, I got almost a flood there, just in that side wall, and just a little tickle will be enough to take it away. Yeah. Once it's done, it's done. Don't worry about it too much. If you can't get at it, don't butcher your skin trying to get at it. You're doing this at home. You can leave it a few days, once it's, or a week, and once it's grown up out of the nail, then you might be able to catch any little ridges that are left. Don't go injuring yourself in order to make it perfect. I mean, who's going to see you anyway? You're on lockdown, unless you're super image conscious with the people that you live with. But in fairness, I've still never had a shit with the door open, and me and my other half have been together 16 years, so yeah, I guess we all have our standards, don't we? So in real time, it took about 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes to do all of that filing. And now I'm just gonna whack on some top coat. Although I do quite like the look of these opals when they're matte. They're pretty cute. One tip, top tip. I reverse the brush and then kind of drag it over the tip just to cap that free edge, and I'll do that on all of the nails, and I paint using the same method as well. Why do I do this? Because then any excess that you have on the free edge of the nail gets dragged off of the nail when you paint from the base of the nail to your free edge, so you don't end up with fat ends. You can like see them a mile off. They're just not as crispy as you might get when you're fresh out of the salon. So yeah, let's just actually, shall we give you a little bit of nail porn here? Da, 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 da. Oh, sparkles! Anyway, you get the gist. And again, I'm just reinforcing my wrong hand by resting it on my hand and my wrist of my dominant hand and doing as much of the movement as possible with my dominant hand. That's pretty much it. I hope that this helps a few people avoid having like ratchet nails making them miserable, as well as like generally just being stir crazy from having to stay in and missing farm and all of that kind of stuff. And I hope you all can kind of stay safe. If you are keeping long nails, mine are fairly short, so they're easy to keep nice and clean and stuff. But if you are a fan of the long nails, just remember, always wash with a nail brush. And the top tip is you sing happy birthday twice while washing all of the areas of your hands. And if you wash for that long, that's pretty much enough to get germ free. So both hands are all top coated, and just a top tip, when you come out of the lamp, wait 30 seconds at least before you wipe off your tacky layer, because that can help not to kind of dull the surface. Sometimes if you wipe too soon, it can dull the surface of the top coat, I have found. Why won't it focus? Is it all of the shinies? So here I am, I'm just applying a generous quantity of cuticle oil, or you know, in these ransacked supermarket times, just whatever you can get your hands on that's clean and nourishing. You give yourself a good old dose of that, and you'll notice I'm not rubbing it into the nail. Your application area, most people don't have much of a half moon on any of the fingers bar the thumb. That top of the half moon is your lanula, because it's like Latin and shit for moon. But anyway, that's the tip of your nail matrix, which means the rest of your nail matrix is underneath this bit of skin here, and that's the actual living bit of your nail, and that's the bit that needs to be nourished the most. So yes, you want to nourish that skin around the cuticle, the eponychium, and you might also have dry hypernychia, or a hypernychium in the singular. So you might also want to give yourself a little wee pamper under there. But generally, this is the area that is good to nourish and also stimulate that blood flow for lots of healthy growth. So there we go. That's how to fill your nails under extreme emergency circumstances with lockdown and all of that kind of thing. I hope that you found this useful, and that it stops you from going crazy and gives you a little boost during these trying times. I hope you all will stay safe and healthy. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.